I just realized that I was muted this entire time. Hello, I'm Aura, and I hope you are having a nice afternoon, evening, day, or whatever time it is for you. And what I was discussing is that I am one of a few different personalities that I have because I have a condition called DID. And I was sharing that we sometimes may pop in on one or two episodes. So we present ourselves in a certain way, in a way that we're comfortable with. We all have one eye, for example, as that is sort of all you need inside of a non-physical place, like a mental space. And the one I'm showing here is Milo, and he's a beautiful, funny, goofy little guy who represents, well, he represents himself really, but he would be the host of our system. So he is kind of a teenager, and he is very congenial. People really like talking to him, and he would be very happy to talk to you all. He sometimes pops into a Discord call, or he pops in person in real life, and even sometimes with people at work, although we keep that kind of hush-hush. Nobody really knows that I have this condition because we are so cooperative and well managed that only in very extreme circumstances is it ever really a problem for us. So I thought today I would do some sketches so that Sarah Sanana can start working on creating some live 2D characters like the one that I am showing you right now. Me, Aura. So, let me change into something more comfortable, and let's get started. Okay, so let's begin by just doing some sketching that's closer to his face. So I'll start with a general head shape. I don't know why I chose to go off to the right because that's kind of behind me here. I have to get used to having a presence like this, so forgive me if I make a couple of mistakes like I did with the mute. So I like to work in silhouettes first just to kind of get the proportions and blocking and kind of figure out how a creature is structured. And I'm really only going to do sort of the top of the body for the most part. I'm going to just do some shading to help me to see what it is that I am doing. And so I just recently got back from a trip, and sure that I am loud enough. Maybe I'll turn back the music just a bit so I'm not competing with it. On that trip, I was talking to a lot of people and demonstrating a lot of things, and it went really well. People came from all over the world to work together, and I got to talk to people and, when possible, make them laugh a little bit. And I like to be kind of disarming, especially with a group of engineers, because that's what I am. And yeah, people expressed that they really enjoyed themselves. So I was one of many people who were there to talk and share lessons learned and agree how things should be done. And it was very productive. Give me just a moment while I combobulate myself here. Think about his hair. Let's focus on his face for a second so that we can get some basic shapes right. I always like working with charcoal brush because it's fuzzy and it gives me a chance to kind of get my fuzzies out of my head. And believe me, I have a lot of fuzzies in my head. So, I like working this way. Let's make his eye shadow a bit bigger and indicate where an eyebrow goes so I can kind of decide on features. And I say this every stream, I am not an art professional, so I am always reminding myself of what to do as I'm going and experimenting with things and trying to find my way. I focus more on feeling when I'm making things, trying to feel what feels right, what doesn't, and trying to relax into what I'm doing a little bit. Because a lot of my inspiration comes from inside, and so I have to give it room to breathe. And that means necessarily a little bit of loss of structure, loss of defined, regular, ritualistic technique. But I tend to like carving and chiseling at things until they look right. Just kind of getting my hand moving at this point. So I'm wanting to draw kind of a happy Milo here. It's funny about the mute thing. I was like, I know I'm going to mute myself by accident. And I did. I have to learn how to do the Live 3D effectively. So that is new for me too, and you'll probably see me do some goofy things. Maybe I will accidentally put up my prayer hands at the same time I put up my pointing hand. Do something like this. I fully expect some of that goofiness to happen. I just noticed I'm right, for example, in front of the picture for some reason, so I will make myself smaller and off to the right. There we go. So much better. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and come back to our picture. Let's add some eyeball here. And Milo has blue eyes, like I do. And he has just a slight ring of red on the inside, like this. Kind of work on the structure of the face a little bit more. And he's probably yapping in this picture. So I'm going to have his mouth open. And start thinking about the shadows in here, where his teeth are. Start making more sense out of the outside of his face. And Milo's one of those characters who was even a bit reluctant to be drawn at first, because I always ask the others, being the person who's the altar that's usually doing most of the artwork, if they want to be drawn. And Milo's kind of reclusive a bit sometimes, despite being so gregarious. A little less likely to want to be seen. But he's changing a little bit. He doesn't mind as much as he used to, anyway. His mouth should probably be a little bit lower, so I'm going to do that. Probably more about like that. And just for simplicity, I'm just working on one layer. Sometimes Milo has no hair on the top of his head, And he's wanted to kind of have more of a metal look to him, so he would have shaved just the top of his head and had long locks that come down. You can see that in some of these other pictures I'll show you. Let's show and tell. Some of these other ones, like this picture, you can see he's the short, pale guy off to the left, and he has just got long locks off the sides of his head. Or let's find another one. How about this picture of us rocking out? Let's find that one. Having trouble locating it. Hang on just a second. Okay. Let me show you this one. So, he's got no hair on the top of his head there with his guitar, his sunglass on, and again, long locks on the sides of his head. So, I am drawing him a little bit differently this time, in more of a, I guess, traditional kind of less metal, punky version of him. So this is how he would probably appear for you all. I think his eye is a little bit big and not positioned quite right. So let's fix that. Maybe about like that. And again, I'm just kind of making a big mess right now, but that's so that I can think a little bit more about how he's supposed to look. And also I can feel from him whether he likes something or not. He's kind of sitting there in the background, making comments. He doesn't like his nose. And we're gonna work on that, fix it. And first I just want to fix this gap that we've created. So lately I think I mentioned this on the other streams, that I've been struggling a little bit with the seasons, and I'm doing a lot better, I think, than I was. The place that I went out in Boston was still very snowed in. Well, there were piles of snow all over the place from the last storm, so it was cold, and the weather was different than what I was used to. And I didn't feel as bad there either, so I can tell I'm doing a lot better. I was tired a lot. I was jet lagged. So, I did struggle a bit with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to help myself out here by pulling up a reference. Let's go ahead and pull up that picture of Milo that I was showing before. And kind of look carefully at that. So I'm close to what I wanted to achieve here as far as the features. So I think that is actually okay. I'm just gonna go with what I have here. Okay, so queso. Now I'm gonna start working on the shading a little bit here. Think about his bone structure in a more realistic way. How his highlights actually show up. Maybe I will actually work on his mouth a little bit to get this more defined. So that it makes a little bit more sense. Where his teeth would be showing. Where his lips actually meet his face. Some of the musculature around his mouth. And he's very young, so he doesn't have a great deal of, I would say, definition to that. It's all kind of smoothed over by, and I hope you forgive me for this, Milo, it's calling it baby fat. So, not like red or set, zero. These other ones that have more, I would say, structured faces, I guess. Need to think more about his nostrils now. Let's pull in some deeper shadows for his nostrils. the tip of his nose a little more structure. A little deeper shadow here. Let's step back a little bit. He looks kind of crazy. So, I'm going to open his mouth just a bit more, I think. Not to fix the crazy, because he's a goofy little goober. But, just so that I can see the overall picture a little bit better. And skip some of this, just so I can focus on the lips. I was attempting to draw some lower teeth, but then realized I was getting a little distracted with that. So sometimes with my condition, I will kind of lose some focus for a moment, and I may do some strange things, but that's not always bad. Sometimes I accidentally do something that turns out really wonderful, and I wonder, how did I do that? It's another reason I keep it kind of fuzzy. Okay, so let me think about this. We definitely want his brow to be a little bit lower, and we want more even shading on his cheeks right now to kind of make this less chaotic. Round his face a little bit more. Maybe his mouth is just a little bit too wide, too. See, now I can think about maybe putting a couple of little teeth indicators down here, and the fact that he is his fangs, like we all do, except for Solomon. The fang was a little bit too far over. Solomon is an altar that is a little different than the rest of us. He's more sent for helping us. And he's much more, I would say, emotionally, he doesn't have a lot of depth of emotion. He's very straightforward. And he helps maybe when there's an emotional overload. Kind of a protect mode, like a Windows safe mode. So when things are not going so well, he kind of steps in sometimes to manage the overload. And I'm just using black here to just clarify the outline of the face. And we'll pick a really kind of a dark shade, maybe not that dark, to kind of indicate shadowed sections of the neck here. Make the hair very black so that we're very clear about where it is, where the background of his neck and face are. And we'll lighten up the hair later when we want to have more texture and highlight on it. But just working for now in little stages so that we can clarify structure. And give me just one moment. Just going to sip my coffee. Okay. All right. So let's come back out here. And do some more macro scale balancing on his neck and things like that. So he's very young, so the muscles in his neck and his neckline in general, and it's very much more, again, it has sort of a younger layer of subcutaneous fat, so the structures are not quite as prominent as they would be on the others, us others. All right, just checking that I was off mute. My classic mistake. These early streams are going to be so fun to watch again in like a year. All right. Again, let's be sure about the structure before I come in with hair. And let's make some better decisions with his hair here about how it lays. And he doesn't really have, you know, I'm looking at his mouth and thinking maybe I want to try making an adjustment. It's funny because I don't have a solid reference other than what he tells me. So if I'm making adjustments, it's kind of like he's telling me, yeah, that's right. And he says that's right there. So I'm actually going to save this now too because I realize I haven't been doing that. That's pretty darn important. One of those sketches. Alright. That looks perfect. The only thing is that he's a little too dark gray. So I can probably fix that by just adjusting filter a little bit. Since we're at such an early stage here. There we go. So now I'm just having grease contrast a little bit so I can just go back and just kind of blend things in a bit and get them all squared away. Although that probably was really good that I did that because it gave me the courage to go ahead and deepen some shadows. It's always when you put those first few shadows in that you're like, oh my god, I've made a big black mark on my picture. And then but when everything is a little bit more higher, made a little higher contrast in one step, you feel a little bit more bold. Like you can do it. And weird things that happen in your mind while you're painting. And reasons why you get stuck in a little rut. So I'm going to add some more lower eyelid here, or at least a placeholder for one. Make this dimensionally look a bit better. Give his upper eyelid some shade here. And the bone structure above his eye, let's make that make a little bit more sense. Bring his eyebrow a little bit further down. And defuzz it. Give it some better shape. So I'm speaking very specifically about how we work together and cooperate, none of us that are conscious really have control over the brush. It's more like we're piloting another sort of a fragment altar that does the actual movement. So if I just completely space out, that altar will continue to paint things as though it's some kind of an AI or something just kind of working in the background. So, not that anything I do is AI here, but just say that there are some altars that just don't have much of much control or exercise much volition other than to function and do some job. Now, that being said, I have an altar named Nialo who has a full-blown personality and everything, and she's mostly responsible for doing things at work and doing things that just require muster and getting through. But she is quite sympathetic and has a quite agreeable personality and cares a lot about other people and has a pretty good sense of humor, although she can be a little bit gruff sometimes, which comes across as actually kind of humorous. So a lot of the time, I am just yapping away and I'm noticing something and going, that doesn't look right. And I'm actually kind of talking internally. And this, what I guess you call in clinical psychology a ANP, will just kind of start correcting and trying things to correct. It works much better if I stick to one tool, but sometimes I make the conscious decision to say I want to change tools, and it will follow. So let me mention right now that something I'm doing here is I'm making concept sketch for the model artist, the Live 2D model artist, avatar artist. So it's not going to be quite as detailed as it otherwise would be. It focuses more on sort of what was the model for this character. In this case, my alter Milo. Sort of how does he look? What defines him? What kind of personalities would he, or what kind of expressions would he make? And here he's pretty happy, gregarious, probably chatting about something funny. Let's bring his shoulders a little bit less muscular, bring them down, start working on his upper body. I think the other sketches are going to focus more on his expressions instead of so much on his body. So I'm going to draw him in a little t-shirt here in a second, but first I want to get some structure. So actually, let's go ahead and do that. Let's pick like color brush. And let's say he's wearing a dark blue shirt or maybe even a red shirt. And just start coloring in a little bit more deeper red. I wonder how this color brush is supposed to work, because it doesn't really come across the way I expect. Let's decide a point where his t-shirt ends here. I should have probably started on a different layer, but that's okay. This is all just to kind of fact find in the concept where what we are drawing, where the colors lie. So let's go back to normal brush. And kind of fill this in here. Some rough shading in. Clean this up a little bit. Decide what's in front of what, of course. Because I had an arm that was kind of doing some impossible stuff there for a minute. Erase back just a bit here, give his arm a little more definition. And actually, let's just take this part out down here. Oh. Somehow I have chosen the wrong. Here we go. Just use a hard eraser to remove this and pick a spot in which I am starting to remove this. Say where the limits here. Save. And take a moment to just look at this and say, how is this as far as what I intended? So I really like the face. I like the body structure. I like his gesture. He seems like he's being emphatic about something. His eye color is a little bit off. What else? Let's see. I mean, obviously I need to define like his hand and things like that. But his hair length is good. I'm kind of asking eternally here. No. Hmm. Hmm. Let me take a break for just 1 second to get some water. I will be right back. Okay, so let's continue. Let's see. Let us just continue to define his arm, hand, and all that good stuff here. Make sure, actually I'm going to keep him in perspective so that I do the proportions right here. And I'm just going to hell with whatever's behind for the moment so that I can just kind of focus on his fingies. And what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see. Look for a second. Take a sip. I have like 3 beverages out here. Very typical for me to have variety. Let me look at my own hand for a second. Decide how to fix his stumpy thumb problem. There we go. Find the proper connection of the hand. Now let's zoom in on the hand a little bit and define this better. Oh. This would probably be a little bit easier if I wasn't working on one layer, but I'm just being carefree at the moment. And I'm not going to worry about defining the hand too much because, again, this is kind of a concept sketch, so there's not, being a sketch, there's not going to be a whole hell of a lot of detail. Mm-hmm. All right, let's just go ahead and overlay this for a second. And just shadow in some stuff just to make it look a little bit more foldy, three-dimensional, all that good stuff. Actually, let's bring the opacity down a bit. Yeah. Actually, that was kind of a mistake. Let's get rid of that. Same with this. Go ahead and just add a couple of little highlights on the shirt. Go ahead and merge this down. With a layer mask. Do some cleanup and shade work a little bit. Like I said, I don't really want to go ham on this one with details. Do kind of want to have some more indication that there's a t-shirt here. Shadow. Start borrowing from that shadow that I instilled with the shadow shades that I installed with the overlay. Go back to erase. Let's bring our opacity back up. I was kind of wondering why that wasn't hitting hard enough, and that's why. Alright. I'm going to help myself out here a little bit by just getting this with a magic selector. I'll get rid of some of the fuzz. Since this is a concept, I don't mind so much that it has those edges like that. And let's pick up some lighter shades here and actually let's do this with an overlay. Actually, no, we can't really do that yet because it's completely black, so let's go back to one layer here. And we may not actually have to. We can probably just do this. Now we can try the overlay. Shadow in around the edges of those highlights we added. Alright, I think I am going to... I remember there was a little bit of cleanup work down here. That's fine. I'm going to work on this eye and get this pupil defined better. Make the blue more like this color blue. Just kind of telling the painting AMP to fix this. Alright. Go ahead and add some reflections. Like that. And then maybe we'll work the face just a little bit with overlay at a very low opacity. Sorry if I'm going away from my mic. Here we go. Let's give them a little bit more three-dimensional structure. Define the shadows a little bit better. Alright, now go back. Let's merge this. And let's work on clarifying his eyelid. Maybe adding the indication of some lashes. Making his upper brow a little bit more defined. Working on the muscles around the eye a little bit better. Temple, other things. Yeah. As I'm just sitting there with my mouth open. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. It's very lightly working maybe some indication of lashes here. Still low opacity. Maybe a little bit more opacity for this. He's looking all muppety. I'm gonna try to fix that now. Yeah, that just kind of looks dirty. Doesn't look great. And I know why. Because his upper eyelid isn't following the curve of a proper eyeball here, so we're gonna fix that. I love this track. Think about the eyelid coming down a little bit lower here. And that's probably a lot of the problem I'm having here. It's a big eye. And that's starting to look a little bit more the way it's supposed to be. Keep it simple. Fix this cruddy line here. give more structure to his hair now. Fix a slight perspective issue here. Let's give a little bit more texture to this. Just a second. Or give a little bit more shape. Let's crank the opacity. There we go. Give a little more shape to his hair. Come back and clean up some of that stuff in just a second. It's hanging out. And then I'll come back with some overlay and add more rich highlighting. A few more shadows in here though, just something to work with when I hit the overlay. Do some harder highlighting with overlay. Really have to be careful here because it can help sort of preserve some of those texture, those strokes, while providing highlighting, but it can also just look like a weird stroke, for lack of a better term. So I like to go back and forth between overlay and then normal paint. I'm kind of in my way here. Let me move this over. There we go. soften some of this just a bit. I'm not really sure what's going on here. Okay, and then his neck is not really connecting correctly to his head. And there's a little bit too much. Also he doesn't really have a collar to his shirt. Just kind of starts. A lot of unnecessary messiness in here. I'm just going to fix that by creating a color plate and then working the highlight a little bit more structured. Contrasty. Try to keep it simple. Odd shade that's here probably could just be like this. All right. Let's save that. Take a break for just a second. Yes. Yes. A small break. Hello again. I've returned for just a little bit. I think I may end the stream here and plan on doing another one tomorrow. I'll probably do more frequent streams and shorter streams and then work on bits and parts of this. So, sorry, I hit the wrong button. And somehow I have managed to move myself way up in the air. Okay, so let me say that I think I'm going to end the stream here. And next time I'll probably be working on who knows what, maybe more concepts for the live duty commission, or maybe something that's a special request. But anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you have a very blessed evening, and I hope you find yourself some rest, relaxation, and quiet. Take care, friends. This is Zora.